Welcome back, brothers and sisters. Braden, Tim, Second Legacy. You are amazing, and we have got something to talk about that broke yesterday. Big news in the Republican tickets arena. J.D. Vance is the new VP nominee. Now, this is an interesting one. We're going to walk through the entire thing. On first blush, it's kind of like one of those, if it's too good to be true, it might be. Yeah, we're going to look at it anyway. We're going to break everything down right now. We are deploying sarcasm and humor in a perfection applied towards the Second Amendment. And please, if you guys enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn the notification bell on. Tim, J.D. Vance, we're diving right into it. This is big news, man. They finally figured it out.
Yeah. I mean, we all knew he was in the running. I don't. You know what's funny is I really don't know a whole lot. I mean, he's new to politics, right? I know he's a Marine. I know that he's a senator, a junior senator. I know that he's pro-gun, but he's not one of those political people that I follow because he's not really out there a whole lot. And so when he picked him, I was like, okay, now I got to learn something about J.D. Vance. Right. And it's interesting. I'm not sure I understand the pick, but then I'm not a political creature, so I trust that they know what they're doing.
well, let's start off the first one here, because a good way to gauge if you don't know enough about the candidate that they just chose, just look at your opponents on the gun control side, and they'll tell you everything they want you to know. So, for example, number 5, I think this is a good starting point for this conversation. This is the hit piece ad that every Town for Gun Safety put up. Let's run through a few of these highlights. Called gun violence fake problems. Okay, all right. Opposes expanding background checks and red flag laws. Okay, I like that. Supports arming teachers. That's your own flavor of solution, but it's not red flag laws. It's not gun control. Advocated to abolish the federal agency that enforces gun laws. Okay, hold on a second. Are you telling me that every Town for Gun Safety's advocates and sycophants, they don't know what the ATF is?
Yeah.
That seems like an interesting way to say they want to get rid of the ATF.
Yeah, ATF is much shorter than federal agency, but
that enforces gun laws. It's weird. And he took nearly $500,000 from the NRA for his 2022 Senate campaign. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I'm not upset about those highlights.
Yeah, don't threaten me with a good time.
Exactly.
I mean, that's everything I need to know about the guy. Go JD.
And on board. Right? I mean, guys, are they trying to do a pro J.D. Vance thing, or are they trying to do, like attack him? Because
if you think that's going to turn off, people of a conservative mindset, I think you probably don't understand the field very well.
Yeah, exactly.
But please continue.
Continue, right? I mean, all you have to say for the 2A community is, well, I can say it better, but let's do it their way. Advocated to abolish the federal agency that enforces gun laws. Every single person watching this video just sat up in their chair and was like, tell me more.
Yeah.
Like, go on.
Ooh, I'm going to vote like a Democrat, often and early.
Of course. Hold on. The HR came in my ear just now. He's talking about the primaries followed up by the general. Makes sense. Tim, you're always on it. I love it. But yeah, abolishing the ATF. It's a strong play. That's a go right for the guts. Okay, I like that. Well,
yeah.
This is an interesting thing, and this is what I want to talk about. Now, we're just going to leave that up on the screen because it's so beautiful. Here's the political thing, because I am of the political sphere, and I do really enjoy this kind of stuff. This is why I think this is an interesting pick from a politics general perspective. J.D. Vance is a senator from Ohio. Mm-hmm. The states that vote very similarly are Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Michigan, right? It's that Rust Belt right there.
Yeah.
And just coincidentally enough, all of the swing states that are going to determine the election in 3 months are Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Right
That's
there.
That's what they're focusing on, the Rust Belt states. Yep.
100%. So they've already thrown, like the Biden administration has thrown Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia out the window. They literally have pulled all funding. They're not going for those states. So they have to get Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Those are the only 3 states that they have to get. They lose one of those, they can't win. It really is that bleak for them.
Right.
For him, the local appeal and he's like me from Pennsylvania, from Wisconsin, from Michigan, and Ohio. That is a very valuable asset.
Well, I mean, they elected him to the Senate, right?
Correct.
So there's 100 members in the Senate. So that's a very elite position to win. And so people are generally pretty careful about who they pick for their Senate representatives. And so the fact that, Ohio elected him means Ohio will probably like this pick, the majority of the people.
Correct.
And so, of course, and as you said, because Ohio is very similar to the other Rust Belt states, that they're probably going to go, yeah, we kind of like this guy. He's on our side.
He's one of us. He's one of us.
So, yeah, I mean, I understand that. I mean, that's typically how VPs are picked. They either come from a state that they want to win, or they come from a group that they're trying to win, be that ethnic or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that's why VPs are picked. It's not necessarily because, they agree with their politics. In this case, JD Vance has said some pretty unflattering things about Trump in the past, but that's not uncommon either. I mean, look at VP Harris. She literally called Biden a sexual predator and a racist for not letting her onto a bus to go to a public school because of his racist policies he supported.
And then jumped right on that ticket.
And what I think is really funny is everybody's like, oh, not everybody, but the left on social media saying, oh, Kamala Harris is going to mop the floor with JD Vance. You mean like she did in the debates that she had to drop out of early because she's had such an abysmal performance?
I mean, like less than 1% of the vote in the Democratic presidential primaries. Yeah.
I know. She dropped one of the first people to drop out.
It's so comical stuff. The stuff that they just brushed under the rug. It's hilarious. Kamala Harris is going to wipe the floor with him. I don't think Kamala Harris could wipe the floor if she had a mop. She is not talented with her diction, and she's not talented in her communication styles when there's no one opposing her.
Yep.
Like when she has a microphone talking to an audience that has no ability to talk back, she drops the ball. When you put someone up there that's going to directly counter exactly what she's saying, I'll watch that one. I mean, I watch all of them, but I mean, that would be a fun one. To me, I don't know.
You know how you commend me on my self-regulation?
I do.
I'm struggling here.
Don't you drop it. Yeah, you keep it going.
I'm struggling here.
Well, we're going to move right on. Anything from Kamala? We stay on that.
Kamala Harris and her politics reminds me of Hawk Tuah girl. That's all I'm going to say.
That's fair because she always vomits out words.
Yes.
Totally get it. Oh, my God.
Do not come.
What did Trump say to that?
I'm going to come.
There it is. Hawk Tuah, spit on that thing.
Oh, wow.
All right.
Having the mental image with and you saying that is not acceptable for me. Okay, let's move on past that. I don't need that.
Just take a look into her politics in California and how she rose to power. But anyway, so let's move on.
Yes, through extreme persecution of the law is what he's referring to. So, wink, wink, nod, nod. Here's some potential issues other than that conversation. Here's what the Democrats are doing in Ohio, Tim. And I got to tell you this is an important part of the backstory. Because remember, what we've just covered over the last 5 minutes was every time we're on safety saying horrible things about him not supporting red flag laws, right?
Yeah.
Well, this is interesting. And I think it's part of the conversation. It's got to be addressed. The American Independent, J.D. Vance, backed red flag gun laws in 2018. And now he calls them a giant distraction. Now, here's flat out. I don't like that if someone has endorsed red flag laws, but if you have come away from them after 6 years, I'll watch you.
Yeah,
but I'm not going to throw you under a bus, right?
You know, I kind of liken that to Tulsi Gabbard, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was totally in favor of wild gun control, and then she was a leftist who has now moved to the center and maybe even leaning more to the right. She's definitely become more pro-gun. And we see her posting stuff out there, going to matches and, wearing all the gear and shooting and all that stuff. And certainly because of her past comments, you look at that and go, is this just a political ploy here? Or is she really becoming a 2A supporter and an avid shooter? And so you do question that, but this has been going on so long. I'm starting to believe that she's being honest here. Now, does that mean I would want her to be Trump's VP pick? When we have other choices, not necessarily. So so red flag laws is one of those things that like Dan Crenshaw and other people like that have said in the political arena, saying, well, it's just as long as we preserve due process, they're okay. But the only problem with that is that they, by their very definition, circumvent due process. You can't have a red flag law that goes along with due process because by its very nature, it's intended to go around due process.
Correct.
And so,
and
do I have a problem with that? Yeah. But 6 years ago and stuff he said since then, do I think he's going to push for that now that he's been the VP pick? Probably not. What does he really believe? Who knows?
Well, and so we're going to get to that right now because this, again, what we've shown you so far is Every Time for Gun Safety's post yesterday. I'm showing you some stuff from the Democrats right now from 2018, and then I'm going to show you again 2024 from the Democrats in a second. So, guys, they are throwing everything at the wall, but it's our responsibility to at least show it to you and kind of break it down. Let me continue here on the actual statements. So, again, this is an article from March 21st, 2022. This is number 7. Republican Ohio Senate hopeful J.D. Vance has spent much of his campaign attacking gun grabbers and opposing firearm regulations, but just 4 years ago, he urged his party to pass the very laws he now rails against. Which, okay, that would be a flip-flop position, but as long as you flip-flop in the right way and you reinforce it over time, I'll watch you, but I'm not going to throw you under the bus. Let me continue here, and this speaks to what you just said. Quote, "We should make it easier to take those guns out of the hands of people who are about to use them to murder large numbers of people," he argued at the time. Again, this is 2018. We've got to have the right balance between protecting citizens, protecting our schools, and protecting the kids that go to them, but also protecting our really important and fundamental constitutional liberty. That speaks to what you just said. That's the Dan Crenshaw line. It's, well, as long as we protect our Second Amendment rights, but we still have due process. But the problem is, like you said so succinctly, it's impossible. Those two things cannot exist in the same space.
Right.
Red flag laws and constitutional protections do not exist. It's impossible. And eventually it will be struck down by the court. And one more thing, and then crack this open. But since announcing his Senate campaign, Vance has abandoned his support for any new gun safety legislation. And of course, it's coming from Democratic source, so that's the language that they use. I mean, they even say it right there. He did it in 2018, but now he's abandoned it, and now he's a senator, and now he's a VP. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, to me, that seems like they're just throwing crap against the wall.
Yeah, I trust that, as part of the Trump administration, he won't advocate for anything. Obviously, he's seen the error in his ways and probably, decreased his likelihood of political success. And he's weighed that, and he realizes that the people,
I think that's correct.
The people support, pro 2A measures, not anti 2A measures. And that is a powerful force against a politician. I'm not saying it makes it right. I'm not saying I even agree with him or that I would even think that he's a great choice. But the fact is the job of the politician is to listen to their constituents and take those concerns, even if they don't agree with them. They're supposed to represent those concerns and take those to DC, right? That's what a true representative does. So if I were elected to Congress and my constituents said that they, wanted a leash law in my county or in my state, well, I might not agree with the leash law, but it's my job to listen to my constituents and go, well, this is what the majority of them think, so maybe I should consider this when I go to DC, right? So that's the job of a politician. But there's other people that would say that they elect politicians that have strong convictions. Even if they don't agree with them 100%, they're still going to support that politician. So it goes multiple different ways. But yeah.
So I think that's. Oh yeah,
I prefer he hadn't said all that stuff.
I prefer that it never happened. Right. I totally understand. But I do think that it is interesting to note that the other VP shortlist candidates were far worse on their propensity to lean towards gun control. Like Marco Rubio,
I don't trust him.
Really leans towards, well, if we can find some common sense restriction, like really that way, right?
Yeah.
But
keep in mind, he's a swamp creature. I mean, this guy's been doing it way too long. The thing that's appealing about JD is he's a junior senator. He's brand new to politics. He's a young guy, right? And so he's kind of an open canvas, if you will. He hasn't really set himself in stone just yet. He's a young guy. And I also think it's really interesting that I see the left out there now saying this guy has no experience. He's just one heartbeat from the presidency.
Don't open that door.
Right. It's like, did you miss the whole Obama thing?
Right. Like
your great savior. He was a community organizer. He had no experience either.
Yeah, but he was really, really great though. He was. They told us so. They told us so, Tim.
Yeah, he was so great. They had to tell us he was great. But
exactly, it was so obvious that they told us. So now this next piece, this is the last one. This is what the Dems telling you they're afraid of. This is kind of, again, that every time for gun safety. Now we're back to 2024. So I showed you 2018, 2021, and now we're back to 2024. So this is coming from Democrat stuff. Look, I even put the D in there just so you guys could see it's branded Democrat stuff. Trump's MAGA veepstakes. J.D. Vance calls gun violence fake problems. So they're ginning up the machine against him because he doesn't support gun control, right? That's what's happening politically. Let me continue on a few of these hit pieces that they use, and then they have some quotes. I think it'll have the opposite effect on you. This is number 11. After J.D. Vance downplayed gun violence and dismissed the issue as fake problems, DNC Rapid Response Director Alex Floyd released the following statement. Quote, JD Vance is not only putting the gun lobby ahead of our community's safety, but also disrespecting the victims of gun violence that score cheap political points with Donald Trump. Just like Trump's own disgusting comments telling a grieving community to just get over a school shooting, Vance dismissed gun violence and efforts to prevent another shooting like the horrific massacre in Las Vegas as fake problems, and another despicable example of out-of-touch MAGA extremism. Again, are you writing his critique or a reason to vote for him? Just saying.
Yeah, I mean, so look, just look at the verbiage yet again that this person has chosen to use. They keep referring to it as gun violence. There's no mention of criminals in here. There's no mention of the people pulling the triggers. It's always about the gun. It's like the guns are hiding behind every bush, just waiting for you to walk by, and the gun's going to jump out and get you. There's no finger attached to it. And so is it a fake problem when you constantly blame an inanimate object for the actions of people? Yeah, that's a fake problem. The real problem are the criminals. And what are you going to do about that? The vast majority of gun violence in America is gang violence, right? And we don't want to talk about gangs. We just want to say it's the white guys buying 50 rounds of ammunition.
Oh, Joy Behar. Oh, right. That's a quote. That is a quote.
It is. That's the View being stupid. But it's true. Don't let white people buy ammo. It's a problem.
No, I can't have that. But have that. It's our fault.
But that's their mindset. So is it a fake problem? Yeah. When you blame inanimate objects for the actions of criminals, that's a fake problem. That's a fake narrative. That doesn't address the problem, and it isn't a solution to solve a problem. That's just a pitch to get you to surrender your rights, thinking somehow you're suddenly going to be safe if you're disarmed. That makes sense.
That is correct. That is absolutely correct. But now, again, in this pitch to make him seem like a demon, they're making him seem like a really pretty awesome person because he went against Chuck Schumer. You can't do that, Tim. Let me show you this one. This is number 12. J.D. Vance called gun violence fake problems and efforts to address it a huge distraction, even dismissing the bump stock ban. We talked about that. But here it is from the Hill. Quote, I think it's a huge distraction, said Senator J.D. Vance, Republican Ohio, who is believed to be on Trump's shortlist to be his running mate. This is week 3 of Chuck Schumer focusing on fake problems instead of real problems. From NBC. I think we have to ask ourselves, what is the real gun violence problem in this country? Are we legislating in a way that solves fake problems or solves real problems, Vance said. He just called the gun violence prevention completely fake and made for political theater.
Yeah.
Check.
Right. I mean, it is basically what I just said. Now, he didn't say it the same way I said it, but that certainly is his line of thinking here. The fake problem is assigning guilt to an inanimate object. That's a fake problem, folks. It doesn't get any more fake than that. That's like saying we need to ban forks because they make people fat.
I mean, that's my excuse.
Yeah. See, if we just take all the forks out of your household,
I would be fine.
Yeah, you wouldn't find any way to eat. I mean, violence just goes away. Yeah, and food just goes away. Yeah.
It just goes away forever. My needs for caloric intake go away. Well, so now this next one, I think you're going to find this. I got 2 more for you just to wrap this, but I think this kind of aligns to what you just said. This is number 13. Vance also said he was concerned the bill, this is the Chuck Schumer bill, the background check one, could end up just inhibiting the rights of law-abiding Americans. The question is, how many people would have been shot alternatively? And you have to ask yourself the question, will anyone actually not choose a bump stock because Chuck Schumer passes a piece of legislation? So that to me is really good because you're sitting there saying, like, what, are you telling me criminals are not just going to ignore your legislation? Come on.
Yeah. And beyond that, you don't need a stock to bump fire a firearm. You just don't. Get on YouTube. You'll see people bump firing all over the place. It doesn't require any accessories. It's a natural function of a semi-automatic rifle. And so that's where they're going with this, right? So if they can convince you that bump firing is the equivalent of a machine gun, then it's just a small step to go, well, look, you can bump fire without a stock. So it is a machine gun and they just need to be regulated or taken away. That's where they're going with this. It's the incrementalism.
Yeah, and they're big mad. And the last thing I'll show you, just as a quote to kind of bolster his points. This is from J.D. Vance. The background check system is not the problem. The idea that expanded background checks is going to solve the problem is unfortunately not true. Openly, overtly says expanded background checks are not the solution.
And what have we learned so far about the recent events in Pennsylvania? The shooter acquired the firearm legally, is what I've seen reported, which means they went through a background check.
Oh.
And did that stop violence? Did it stop a criminal from being a criminal? No. That's because these things don't work. Matter of fact, most people that get tripped up in the NICS background, and this is coming from a gun dealer. Most people that get tripped up by the NICS background system are people that had no criminal past. They either had a name similar to somebody else or something, but they weren't prohibited, but yet they were prohibited because Nix flagged them. So even when you do get a positive hit on somebody, meaning that they're being denied, generally the vast majority of the time it's unjust. It was just a mistake in the system or the person doing the check. And so it doesn't work. It never has worked. And if you go back to the crime dropping over the last 30 years, that has nothing to do with any Nix or fixed Nix systems. It doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
Two totally different things. What has brought crime down is the increased number of firearms being sold, people exercising their rights and defending themselves. And even the CDC posted something on their website saying that, there's millions of defensive uses of firearms, which far outweigh the criminal uses of firearms or misuses of firearms, which then the anti-gunners petitioned the CDC to remove that from their website, and they removed it. We can't have the truth out there, folks.
Can't be doing that. Can't be doing that. Well, Tim, that was a little bit longer of a segment, but that's what I've got for you. The JD Vance, the VP candidate. I mean,
well, it was a good discussion. I mean, we had to have this discussion given his past comments, and we'll follow this. We'll see how this plays out. What do you think of JD Vance as the VP pick? Comment down below. Thank you for watching Second Legacy. We'll talk to you guys soon.